is what it is.
Right across somebody's front lawn.
The scope of the flooding in Bracebridge is becoming clearer. Now the recovery effort is moving into high gear. After days of rising floodwaters, there's reason for optimism tonight in Bracebridge. Water levels are stabilizing. There's even some sun and warmer weather in the forecast. Matt Nagrabi-Selassie joins us live now from Bracebridge. And Mac, there we're also getting a better sense of just how extensive the damage is up there. We can actually see some of it right behind you.
It's true. You just take a look. You can see crews kind of cleaning up. There is a tree that has fallen on a couple of the boats there behind me, and they're starting to do the work to get that tree off those boats. Now, today we also hitched a ride with the Army to get to a flooded area that we just weren't able to see before. They came out on foot.
When I was walking through, I saw a bunch of people's homes that they're on stilts, and you know, it didn't make a difference at this point because they're all flooded. The highest I got was a little bit above my knees, and there's not much of a current, which that was my one concern, I guess, coming in.
And brought their pets out by kayak.
They're not fans of the water, but they're itching to get out, but yeah.
This is what residents along Fraserburg Road have been dealing with. This road has been closed for more than a week. Today, the Army went in to check on people and help others get out.
The sub pump's good so far.
Good.
Yeah.
And the water's coming in naturally. You know, there's so much water in the ground. You're not, you know, it is what it is.
Just like on our street alone, I haven't seen other places, but for the people that have been flooded and have been forced to leave, and I don't know when they'll be able to come back, and it's just, no, it's really terrible.
And for the first time since being here, the Army put boats in the water to survey the damage.
We're heading north on the river, and we're essentially marking locations where there's any trees in the water or any severe erosion that could cause further damage to any houses, so that we could come back and repair later on.
They're looking for damaged trees that could destroy property. This is Santa's Village. It's also flooded.
Is it back here or back this way? Back this way?
Yeah. Meanwhile, talk is turning to how to prevent this from happening again. About 40 minutes away, the mayor of Muskoka Lakes had this to say yesterday.
I'm not trying to point a finger at anyone, but what I am saying is our provincial government has an opportunity right now to solve a problem, to look at something that's been in place for almost 15 years now and to update it and to input climate change into that. We don't want to go through this again the winter of 2020.
Bracebridge's mayor says that's a conversation for another day.
That this is an active emergency and we want to get through the emergency, and we'll talk about the woulda, coulda, shoulda part later.
Now, both of those mayors say they are looking forward to speaking with Premier Ford tomorrow. He's actually scheduled to be in the region. He's supposed to be speaking at the Muskoka Lakes Chamber of Commerce annual meeting tomorrow afternoon, but I am sure he will also be getting a lot of questions about how exactly the province will be helping out residents in this area. Dwight?
Yeah, if this is the new normal, something needs to be done. Thank you, Magda. And we mentioned off the top that Mother Nature may be giving these folks a break. Nick.
Yeah, what we're looking at right now is another round of rainfall, but the bulk of that rain is actually going to hit the Golden Horseshoe. So good news for the folks up north. For us in the city of Toronto and surrounding areas, we are looking at some heavier rainfall coming in for tonight. Break, though, for the folks up north. There's a look at the current satellite and radar image that you see right now. We have started to see a little bit in the way of sunshine just poking in. However, as I mentioned, another system is on the way. That's this one over here. But the way the forecast is panning out, it's again along the same line here. It's going to drive mostly along the Golden Horseshoe. If you follow the track here, we're expecting to see rain showers moving in around 1 a.m. this tonight, and then lasting through the overnight. Rain heavy at times for us. However, to the north, it's going to be more in the way of spotty showers. So I suppose a little bit of a silver lining there. For us, so as much as 10 to 20 millimeters and locally heavy downpours for tonight, 14 degrees and morning fog as well. We'll have full details. Lots to talk about coming up in just a bit.
All right. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
What brings you here to the ICE condos?
I just wanted to check out Toronto, the Blue Jays, doing a tour of the domes this summer. So.
And you're staying here at the ICE condos?
Yes.
And is it an Airbnb that you're staying at?
Yes, it is.
It's officially a condo, but this building is being used more like a hotel, and new data shows it's the #1 spot for complaints about Airbnbs in Toronto. What one resident says she has to deal with coming up in a few minutes. Thousands of people are struggling amid Toronto's housing crunch. So to help with that, the province says it's unveiled a new plan to boost supply. The More Homes, More Choice Act includes sweeping policy changes meant to reduce red tape and encourage more development. City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly joins us now to break it all down. And Lauren, what does this provincial plan mean for Toronto?
Well, we know Toronto has a building boom. You can see it from all the cranes in the sky. But we also know there's an affordable housing shortage, with both renters and potential buyers feeling like they're stuck in the market. Now the province says they might have a possible fix for some of these issues with a new housing supply plan. They're talking about cutting red tape and making things easier for builders to help boost supply. But some critics I spoke to have concerns, saying this plan might not actually fix the problems facing Toronto residents.
For too long, government has stood in the way of increasing housing supply in this province.
Housing Minister Steve Clark wants to change that.
We need to speed up development approval process to reduce red tape and paperwork that adds years to a construction project.
New legislation is meant to build more forms of housing and make it more affordable. Welcome news to the real estate industry.
The more land that's put into housing development, the more supply there's going to be across the board, from starter homes to rentals to social housing to Habitat for Humanity.
One key piece of the plan is changing how development charges work. They're fees collected from developers by municipalities to fund everything from transit and roads to water infrastructure or community centers.
The changes include postponing charges for new rental buildings so developers don't have to pay until the units are rented. There's also going to be an overall cap on the fees being collected.
We will make costs more predictable to encourage developers to build more housing and reduce the layers of permits, government approvals and charges that will add to the cost of building new homes.
All he's doing is actually making it cheaper for developers to build.
Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam says the city needs to cash in on that growth.
The interpretation for the cities is that we're going to see less revenues.
A second piece of the plan means shifting the local planning appeal tribunal back to the format of the controversial Ontario Municipal Board, giving the development appeal body more power to overrule municipal decisions on development projects.
What the province is proposing is actually cutting out the community from any land use appeals. So if you're a neighborhood that's concerned with either the decision of a developer or the city, you're going to be cut out of that process for appeal.
And there's a third piece.
We will protect tenants and make it easier to build rental housing.
The plan will force municipalities to allow people to rent out part of their home, coach house, or garage. So what will all these changes really mean for renters? We brought questions to a local tenant advocate who took part in provincial consultations.
Did you hear anything in this plan that makes you believe the province will be able to boost affordable housing supply?
No, it's hard. We participated in this consultation very sincerely, very diligently, and frankly, seeing the results, the whole thing was a sham. It was a complete waste of our time.
The bottom line, critics told me, is that today's news is a big win, not for residents and renters, but for home builders and developers. And there's a big piece of criticism that actually stems from a part of this plan that was announced not today in this legislation, but months ago back in November. The province decided to scrap rent control for all new units hitting the market. So the question now for many people is, it's one thing to boost supply, but will it actually be affordable? Dwight?
We will wait and see. Thank you, Lauren. 311 complaints about short-term rentals have skyrocketed in the city. That's according to new data obtained by CBC News. The city says it investigates every complaint, but as Farah Morelli found out, that doesn't mean every problem is actually fixed.
Stand outside Toronto's ICE condos for long enough, and you'll easily find at least one Airbnb renter.
It was cheaper than the hotels.
Like Shane Waters from South Carolina.
So what brings you here to the ICE condos?
I just wanted to check out Toronto, the Blue Jays, doing a tour of the domes this summer. So.
And you're staying here at the ICE condos?
Yes.
And is it an Airbnb that you're staying at?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
People who actually live here say it's hard to ignore.
Like, some people weren't quite sure what rooms they were supposed to go to or what apartments, so there were people trying to get into someone else's apartment, and then
So
people
it
had to
kinda-
complain. Yeah, it's been a real problem.
According to new data obtained by CBC News, complaints to the city's 311 line about short-term rentals have skyrocketed over the last 8 years. In 2010, there were just 9 complaints. In 2018, there were more than 300. The ICE condos have the most complaints in the entire city.
Pretty much every weekend there's piles of, drink boxes and pizza boxes on the floor and things sort of shoved in.
It's news that doesn't surprise Becca Young.
There is a regular 5 to 15, 20-minute wait for the elevators, especially around Airbnb check-in or check-out.
Young believes all but 2 units on this floor are Airbnb suites. Her 3-year-old son shares a wall with one.
This is the wall that's shared with the party unit next to us. Short-term rentals on the other side, but less of a problem. So this is really the one where they're having the parties, they're getting loud, they're having the fights. And we've had, incidences of real moments of disgusting, unsafe incidents, vomit in the hallways, vomit in the front hall, blood in the foyer.
The city says 311 complaints about things like garbage are easy to deal with, but proving a unit is an illegal short-term rental, especially in a condo, isn't.
We have to gain that evidence, which may mean we have to be there to interview people that are renting the property, determining if they're from out of town, where they're from, getting copies of their rental agreements or that. So it's a very challenging file to gain the necessary evidence to lay a charge.
Which is why Young says she's eager to see regulations.
My hope is that, that the regulation pass and that it comes with some teeth for enforcement and that a playbook is somehow developed for a building like ours, because we desperately need it.
Sure sounds like it. Farah Morelli joins us live now. We've seen the complaints rise, as you said in the story. The city's response to those complaints would change if regulations were brought in, no?
Yes, it would, Dwight. We know that those regulations are obviously being appealed right now, but if they did come into place, what it would essentially do is give the city more tools to be able to respond to these complaints. For example, they could do title searches and see if a property owner owns multiple properties and just try and figure out whether that rental unit is their primary residence. They could also levy bigger fines. But at the end of the day, with regulations, Dwight, they would still be responding to these alleged illegal short-term rentals through complaints, which is the same as it is now. So that, in a sense, wouldn't really change.
Thank you, Farah.
You're welcome.
Doug Ford essentially gets to say what transit gets built, when it gets built, how it gets built.
4 years, Doug Ford has said Toronto couldn't get transit built. Now they won't be allowed to. The PCs have tabled their transportation bill that takes planning power away from the city. Mike Crawley will give us all the details a little later in the show. There will be a lot fewer elite female hockey players taken to the ice next season. More than 200 of the top players in the world say they will not play professionally in North America. It's all in an attempt to establish a single, economically viable professional league. Just over a month ago, the Canadian Women's Hockey League made an abrupt decision to cease operations due to financial issues. That left North America with just one pro league, the 5-team US-based National Women's Hockey League. The boycott includes players from both the defunct Canadian League and the NWHL. Earlier today, I spoke to one of the players. Liz Knox is a former goalie for the Markham Thunder and co-chair of the CWHL Players Association. Tell us exactly what this stand is. Break it down for us. We had a league in the States. We have a league in Canada. The league in Canada has folded. A lot of people said, well, they're going to try to put a couple of teams maybe in Toronto, Montreal, and some of you players would have gone over. What's the problem with that idea right now?
So the feedback that we've gotten, and we've talked to girls that played in the NW, played in both leagues, and then just played CW, and the feedback that we're getting is that it's just not a sustainable option. Issues that Canadian girls had with the NW was, what are our labor laws on this? Like, am I still allowed to work full time if I work for the American company? Where does immigration sit in this? Do I have to get travel insurance every time I play in the States? States. And it's all things that we never had to deal with in the CW because we were blanketed under Hockey Canada and under the OWHA. So there was just too many questions in our conversations with the NWHLPA and with the NWHL that left us feeling like, I don't think these problems are going to get fixed, and we need to start demanding of more.
Let's take a look, before we dive deeper into this, into the overall picture of just women in sports. We've had the same kind of issues with the WNBA. Is this just coming down now to a matter of fairness when it comes to male and female athletes in North America?
Yeah, and fairness in terms of what we've earned. We're not saying that we want to make what the men make. We haven't earned that. We haven't been given the chance to. People will say you don't generate as much money as the men. You're right, we're not arguing that. But if you want to call us professional and create a space for professional hockey, we have to make a living wage and we have to be secured and safe doing it. And we don't have that right now. In a lot of circumstances, junior B teams have more resources than we have.
What are you hoping for from the NHL and Gary Bettman as you look at the situation?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to learn from the WNBA model. I'm not going to put words in the NHL's mouth. The things that they've said is that if there's a void, we would look in to support the women's hockey. And that's what we're doing. We created a void. We're saying this isn't good for us. This isn't sustainable. And, if that's a sense of responsibility that they feel now, good. Let's see what that would look like for us. At the same time, we're not limited to the NHL. There's other people out there that have wanted to invest in women's hockey and haven't because we have two leagues. And they don't want to be the deciding factor between, two women's leagues that are just doing the best they can to survive. It's intimidating and it's scary. Like, this kind of change is scary. For us to take this kind of stance at this point in history, it's terrifying. And it will scare some girls off. I hope that through education and through, taking this process as it comes and being open and honest with each other, we find a better solution for everybody. And if there's players that don't take part in the movement, that's fine. I hope it benefits them in the end as well.
When you look at Hockey Canada and you look at USA Hockey, don't they have a role to play in this? And because in the end, if they have a pro league, they have better players to pick from when it is time for the Olympics or World Championships again.
Certainly, we know the contributions of Hockey Canada to men's hockey versus women's hockey, and it's incredibly lopsided. The last World Championships, our girls came home with bronze. That's the first time we finished worse than second place at a World Championship. Is that not an eye-opener to say, okay, we're doing our best to develop, but we don't have the resources to really push our sport. And if we want to continue to see that growth and see it grow into something that's worth the investment and worth, the revenue that we're going to get out of it, we have to have some buy-in from those people that are really benefiting off the image of the women succeeding. A lot of girls are sacrificing their last professional hockey game. They've already played it and they didn't even get the chance to retire. But they did it and they're buying in and they're with us because they know it's about the next generation. If we don't take this step now, those girls have nothing to look to. And so it's about us. It's about us taking that step for them, being courageous for them, and hopefully, they have a future that's brighter than what we walked into.
Good luck. Thank you for your time today, Liz.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Fans of the Toronto Maple Leafs are mourning a legend tonight. Hall of Famer Leonard "Red" Kelly has died. Kelly entered the NHL with Detroit way back in 1947 and helped the Red Wings to 4 Stanley Cups. In '59, he joined Toronto and won another 4 Cups. During his time with the Leafs, Kelly served as a Liberal Member of Parliament representing York West. Kelly retired in 1967 after helping Toronto win their last championship. After hanging up his skates, he went on to coach the LA Kings, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and finally our Leafs. Red Kelly was 91 years old.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
call it the Battle of the Stickers.
We're bringing balance to the conversation today by sharing with the Premier and the people of Ontario what the cost of the Premier's do-nothing climate plan will cost. That if we continue as business
That's the leader of the Green Party unveiling a sticker today that he hopes you'll soon see on gas pumps in the province. It's the party's answer to the Ford government's sticker pointing out that the federal carbon tax is adding to the price at the pump. Side by side, you can see how similar these stickers are, but the Green Party sticker is all about what climate change will cost if it's not addressed. The Greens are offering their sticker free of charge for gas stations that want to put it beside the mandated sticker. The new Premier of Alberta says nothing less than national unity is at stake if new federal environmental rules are passed in their current form. Jason Kenney was in Ottawa today to talk about Bill C-69, which will establish new processes for reviewing and approving big energy projects like pipelines. Julie Van Dusen is following the story and joins us now from Ottawa. So, Julie, Kenney made some strong statements today, including a threat of a constitutional challenge.
Right. Well, Dwight, it's interesting because he is a brand new premier. He was only sworn in a couple of days ago, but he's certainly not wet behind the ears. He's a very savvy politician who knows how to go for the jugular and how to make headlines, and that's exactly what he did. Arriving at the Senate committee that was studying this bill, he basically threatened a lawsuit within minutes of entering the room. He said, if this bill is passed, see you in court, to the federal government. He said, the bill encroaches on provincial jurisdiction. It will make investors flee, and Alberta is already hurting. And Dwight, in a more provocative way, I guess, he basically talked about Western alienation and how it's growing, and that this bill will inflame it. And he said any prime minister would never even think of doing this to Quebec. Take a listen.
There is no prime minister of any party who would be proposing to invade provincial jurisdiction in attacking, let's say, Quebec's aviation sector or Quebec's hydroelectric sector. If you were facing 50% support for separation in Quebec, it's unthinkable.
Strong words. Okay, so what is the Liberal government now saying about Kenney's threats?
Well, 3 Liberal cabinet ministers were sitting around the same table for about 10 minutes while Kenney wrapped up lambasting them. And basically, they say that this bill is needed. It's needed for the energy sector to give it rules, guidelines to protect the environment, and that it brings with it consultation so that you have public buy-in and the buy-in of First Nations. So they're still pretty wedded to the bill. They say they don't mind thinking of improvements, but they sure don't like what Jason Kenney had to say. Let's start with Amarjeet Sohi, whose riding is in Edmonton. Take a listen.
I rarely hear my constituents talking about separation, right, or leaving Canada. I think it's irresponsible for anyone to suggest that Alberta will leave the Confederation.
It is unfortunate to use inflammatory language to foster polarization.
So now, a little later on, Jason Kenney sat down with the Prime Minister. They were all smiles, but they're certainly at opposite ends when it comes to dealing with the energy sector. So you can be sure, Dwight, that Jason Kenney will be a thorn, a very big one, in the Prime Minister's side.
As we head towards the election, Julie Van Dusen joining us from Ottawa tonight. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
He's the man and name behind one of the world's most iconic brands. Olly Hilfiger is synonymous with fashion. Still ahead, I sit down with the designer to ask about how he got his start and why his company started an exclusive line for people with disabilities.
Way. And I think that people with disabilities are just as attracted to fashion as we are. We really never realized it was going to be quite as exciting as it is, but it's exciting knowing we're doing something to help others.
CBC Toronto is a proud sponsor of the 2019 International Film Festival of South Asia. With over 150 films in 16 languages, It's the largest South Asian film festival in North America. Join us May 9th through 20th for this 12-day spectacle, showcasing galas, stars, parties, concerts, and much more. Check out cbc.ca/Toronto for more information and click on our community page.
One of the three men wanted in the murder of 22-year-old Alex Perlmutter in Richard Stouffville in March has been arrested. Perlmutter was found dead in the parking lot of a church. Investigators believe he was shot at another location and then driven to the church. 23-year-old Levi Alexander has been charged with second-degree murder. The two other suspects remain on the loose. Perlmutter was arrested last year himself in connection with the theft of 3 animals from the Barrie Zoo. 2 people are dead and a child is in hospital after a stabbing at a Brampton home late last night. Now 2 parallel investigations are on the way to try to find out exactly what happened. Greg Ross joins us live from the scene now near Main and Bovaird. And Greg, what can you tell us about both of the investigations?
Well, Dwight, we know that Peel Regional Police are looking into a possible homicide here. They were called to this house here behind me at 11:30 last night, and they found 2 people suffering from very serious injuries, and they both later died. Now, while Peel Police are trying to piece together what happened there, the Special Investigations Unit has also been called in, and they're looking at what happened shortly after police arrived here on scene. Nearly 15 hours after police were first called, the body of a 47-year-old man was removed from this home on Quarry Edge Drive.
My son woke me up and then we saw the flashing lights and he was freaking out.
Neighbors say the family that lived there kept to themselves for the most part, other than a little small talk.
Yeah, say hi, nice weather, talk parent stuff. If we were at the park and we met up.
Many were shocked to hear what happened in this house late last night. Police say they broke down the door when they arrived. They found a 47-year-old man in a bathroom on the main floor suffering from serious stab wounds.
He was apprehended and officers administered first aid to the man until paramedics arrived and took over his care. The man was pronounced dead at the scene.
Police also found a 47-year-old woman with serious injuries upstairs. She was rushed to hospital where she was later pronounced dead.
My heart's out to the kids.
Brittany Monahan lives down the street. She says the man and woman had 2 kids together, a 12-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. Police say they both managed to get out of the house.
So the young boy managed to leave the home and went to a neighbor's home where 911 was called, and the 3-year-old girl was at a different home.
While police wouldn't confirm which home the boy went to, there was still blood on the front step of this house next door and a bloody fingerprint on the doorbell. He was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries and is in stable condition. Police say the young girl was unharmed.
I don't know how they're going to deal with it and the emotional scars and losing both parents.
That SIU investigation is focused on the interaction between police and that 47-year-old man after they arrived here. He was still alive, we're told. When they found him in that main floor bathroom, we're told that police did attempt to save his life. But again, he was later pronounced dead on scene, Dwight.
Thank you, Greg. As Nicholas Tyler Baig was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his pregnant wife, friends and family members of the victim protested outside of the court.
End domestic violence now. Break the silence now. End domestic violence now. Break the silence now.
Ariana Gabardin was 9 months pregnant when she was killed. Baig has been charged, or had been charged rather, with first-degree murder, but in January he pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of second-degree murder. That change comes with an automatic life sentence. The Pickering man will serve that with no chance of parole for 17 years. Baig admitted he murdered his wife after she told him she was going to leave the abusive relationship. Since the expectant mother was killed, her family has been fighting to get a law passed in Canada that anyone like Baig should serve 2 life sentences, one for his wife and the other for his unborn child.
She was just excited. Everything was ready for the baby, the crib, the change table, everything. She had already washed the clothes, ironed it up, packed her bag to go to the hospital. So, you know, for future women in this situation, you know, this is why we're asking that we need to get the government to understand that the law needs to be changed.
She was my only sister. That was my only niece. She came to me for everything. I tried to help her as much as I can, but she just told me, I can help him. I can save him. He used to just abuse her. I was there firsthand.
This is the only time my husband and I actually knew what took place that night. And it was so violent, and to think that, is this how we're going to deter and stop domestic violence?
Confide in someone, speak up, break the silence, end domestic violence. You have support, there's hotlines, you have parents, there's family, friends. Please break the silence, speak up.
The family has started an online petition to change the law, calling it Ariana's Law, hoping it will help end domestic violence by allowing judges to give harsher penalties. People can sign the petition until August. After that, it will be tabled in the House of Commons. It started as a peaceful protest, but by the end of the night, violence took over a major stretch of Toronto. We'll take a deeper look at what happened on Yonge Street this week in 1992, coming up. We're getting a better sense tonight of the effect of provincial funding changes on services like childcare here in Toronto. City staff released these numbers in the last hour, saying the changes to the Ministry of Education funding and other policy changes mean Toronto won't be able to fund more than 6,000 childcare fee subsidies. That's due to nearly $85 million in lost funding. The bottom line, according to the city, a negative impact on families paying childcare fees. Building new subways in Toronto will soon be out of the hands of the city or the TTC. Instead, the province will be calling the shots. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley joins us now with the details on legislation introduced today. And Mike, what powers does this legislation give the province?
Well, it's pretty sweeping stuff, Dwight. I've been looking at the fine print here in this legislation, and it gives Cabinet the power to declare any rapid transit construction or expansion project to be the sole responsibility of Metrolinx. And then it goes on, it actually specifically forbids the City of Toronto from either constructing or developing or even designing or working on any one of these rapid transit projects. Here's the Minister of Transportation, Jeff Urick.
We are going to build 4 new extensions, major expansions, a historic build in the City of Toronto, reaching out into the York region. And I think that's what we need to focus on. That's why we're tabling legislation to enable us to move forward with these builds so that the people of Toronto, the riders, can get the service they deserve.
Thank you very much. The bill also then goes on to say that the government can transfer the ownership of those new transit lines to the province with or without compensation to the city. Dwight?
All right, Mike, now that the government's plans are out there, what does the opposition have to say about it?
Well, the opposition is still a little bit focused on this question of whether Doug Ford's specific transit plan, where he's drawing the lines on the map, whether that's right for Toronto. But now that they've looked at the legislation, they feel that the power that it is giving to the Premier is too much. Here's the NDP's transit critic, Jessica Bell.
What that means is Doug Ford essentially gets to say what transit gets built, when it gets built, how it gets built, and he's not even really required to engage in proper consultation and engage properly with the City of Toronto or Torontonians. That's not the way to build good transit.
Now, the government says it intends to get this legislation passed into law by early June. Dwight?
Mike Crawley joining us from Queen's Park tonight. Thank you, Mike. We've been talking a lot lately about the wet weather and the flooding, but we're getting a reprieve, Nick?
Yeah, we are, and actually just in time for the weekend, believe it or not. It's not often I get to say that. It always seems like the rain comes on the weekend. We are looking at rain, though, for tomorrow morning, in fact, tonight and tomorrow morning. This could come mixed with a little bit in the way of thunderstorms. Morning fog as well could slow down the commute, but a warm up for the weekend and also some sunshine headed our way as well. What we're dealing with right now, though, is this. It's a system that's just pushing through the Windsor area. Today we had late day sunshine, and that's why our temperatures hover just below that double-digit mark. As we move through tonight, cloud cover increasing, rain showers along this band will move through the GTA through tonight. Now, the thing is, if you were watching the last couple of days, this same band has kind of sat there, and that's soaked a lot of these areas in the U.S. as well, and that's been this train of moisture that's been moving into southern Ontario. Now, with this one, however, what we're seeing is actually the heaviest of the rainfall likely to fall along the Golden Horseshoe, just along the north shores of Lake Erie, right into the Golden Horseshoe. GTA expecting to see rain starting around 1 a.m. tonight, and then the heaviest of it till about 8 a.m. Showers tapering off around about noon, but it'll be a wet commute for tomorrow. And then a few spotty showers possible through tomorrow night, maybe Saturday morning, but otherwise Saturday just looking to be cloudy for the most part, but temperatures are warming up. Sunday, by the way, we'll get some sunshine. I'll have that in the 7-day forecast. There's a look at the precip accumulations. And again, Toronto expecting to see upwards to about 20 millimeters, but certainly 10 to locally 20 millimeters of rain. There's your heaviest band, lesser amounts to the north, as I mentioned off the top of the show. Winds will be a little gusty through the morning, and then by the afternoon, though, fairly light winds in the forecast. 9 degrees right now in the City of Toronto. As I said, that cloud cover kept temperatures down. By tonight, we're looking at showers, the risk of a thunderstorm. Temperatures down to 6 degrees. By tomorrow afternoon, we've got highs to about 14 degrees with rain showers ending by about noon tomorrow, and then just cloud cover. 7-day forecast looking pretty good, though. By Saturday, slight chance of a few spotty morning showers, 15 degrees. We'll get the sun late day Saturday. Sunday, Monday, though, lots of sunshine, temperatures at or above seasonal. Dwight.
Looking good. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
Now, the battle against spring flooding is still raging in the Ottawa region. Water levels are expected to stabilize by tomorrow, but the forecast calls for more rain, and that could shift the flood calculations. Hannah Thibodeau is in the community of Rockland, just east of Ottawa.
even though I'm standing in knee-high water. Some good news for people who are living in the flooded areas. Even in areas like this, it appears that the water levels are starting to peak.
It's hard to manage. You know, the sleepless nights, the not knowing what's happening, the maintaining the generators and the pumps, the going off and getting some gas to take care of all that. It's a lot of work.
Pierre Voisin has put 7,000 sandbags around his home to shore it up, and at one point had 12 pumps going. He says he's tired and there's still a lot of work to do.
This is 11 days of 24-hour, work. Our volunteers are tired. I don't expect my volunteers are going to want to come and remove the sandbags that they installed. So we're going to have to find alternate ways to do that. Not quite sure what we're going to do yet, but they're going to stay up for a little while just in case something else comes and hits us.
So over the past nearly 2 weeks of coverage, we've spoken to so many people who wanted to thank the volunteers, the military, from coming in. But in this small little community here, Marcel Fortier wants to thank the Voisin Express too. You have gone through a bout of cancer.
Yes.
You're getting into your appointments and your doctor's appointments. You can't drive your car there.
Oh, no way. I can't even walk. I can't walk. It's too deep. The community is taking care of us. People are coming to check up on us. You need a ride? Tell me what time. What they call the Voisin Express, Jean Lamoureux comes around and he says, this morning, for instance, he was there at 7:15, because we had arranged he would pick me up at 7, so he wanted to be a tad early.
So you could get to your doctor's
Oh,
appointment.
we did well. Got here, got to my doctor appointment, did my thing, rushing back here.
There's still a lot of work to be done because it'll take about 2 weeks or so in some areas for the water to completely recede, and then there's cleanup. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Rockland, Ontario.
And sketching out what I thought the customer would want to buy and what I would want to wear myself.
From a small town in upstate New York to worldwide fame and success. Coming up, my one-on-one with iconic fashion designer Olly Hilfiger. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and it was marked with a ceremony in North York.
Share.
This day is marked around the world to remember the more than 6 million Jews who were murdered during World War II. It was also announced today that Toronto will host a Holocaust commemoration next year called Liberation 75.
Liberation 75 is the global gathering of Holocaust survivors, descendants, educators, students, and friends. Together as a global community, we will remember the victims, honor the survivors, and celebrate the role of our proud liberators.
Liberation 75 will take place next year from May 31st to June 2nd at the Metro Toronto Convention Centre. What started as a peaceful protest would later lead to destruction this week in 1992. In response to the acquittal of 4 white police officers in the Rodney King trial in Los Angeles, 1,000 Torontonians demonstrated in front of the U.S. consulate. The group was further fueled by the killing of a black man by a Toronto police officer just days before. They marched to Yonge and Bloor, blocking traffic for 45 minutes, but just hours later, mirroring Los Angeles, violence and looting began here. In the end, 100 stores were damaged or looted.
Back up. She's being arrested. Back off or you're going to go. Back off.
32 people were arrested. Dozens of protesters were injured, as well as 37 police officers.
Back off now.
Olly Hilfiger has defined American style for decades and has managed to keep his brand relevant and cool along the way. He's dressed rappers and rock stars, creating one of the most recognizable brands in the world. Mr. Hilfiger was in Toronto this week to speak at the 3rd annual Audi Innovation Series, but before I interviewed the fashion designer in front of an audience, I sat down with him to hear how he's continued to grow his iconic brand and how a kid from upstate New York got his start in the fashion world 5 decades ago.
I was obsessed with music and musicians when I was in high school, so I wanted to look like the rock stars.
Got it.
And when I started wearing bell-bottom jeans and really cool clothes, all of my friends wanted to wear the same clothes. So I drove my Volkswagen Bug to New York City, loaded the Bug up with bell-bottom jeans I would buy in the streets, and I brought them back to my high school and sold them to my friends. At which point I decided I should open a store. So I opened a shop, a very small shop called People's Place, and I sold jeans, fringe vests, candles, incense, like really cool gear at the time, 1969. So it was the year of Woodstock.
Yes.
And it was when fashion and music were colliding. It was a big fashion revolution taking place, and that really caught my eye.
What kind of risks did you take then in the beginning? Because you were a high school student, I think, when you started People's
Everything was
Place.
a risk. Every step of the way was a risk. Not going to college was a risk.
I'm sure your parents weren't happy about that.
They were not happy at all. Spending every last penny I had on opening a store at 18 years old was a risk. I had to borrow money.
Yes.
I didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a rich uncle. I was hand to mouth many days and for many years until we really caught on and started doing real business.
Is that where the philanthropy comes from? The fact that you know what it's like to be somebody who's struggling, trying to make it like that? Is that why you do so much to help others now?
I think it came from my mother. We had 9 children in the family.
You're second of 9.
A second of 9.
Wow.
And my mother always wanted to help those who were less fortunate. We would bring neighbors and other children in the adjacent neighborhoods in who were less fortunate.
I find very cool that Tommy Hilfiger has come out with is clothing now for the differently abled.
That's right. Disabled people have a very difficult time buttoning buttons, zipping zippers. Some people have braces on their legs, so they have difficulty getting dressed in the morning. So we decided to create a collection of clothes that would be called the adaptive line and adaptable to people's special needs.
That's special.
It is special.
Not a lot of people
and we're really the first designer brand to do it. I think there are a couple of other companies that do it, but not in a fashionable way. And I think that people with disabilities are just as attracted to fashion as we are. We really never realized it was going to be quite as exciting as it is, but it's exciting knowing we're doing something to help others.
Influencers.
Yes.
That's something, I mean, people still talk about what you did with Gigi Hadid, but you've been connecting with like music stars and like well before this influencer craze came about.
Early on, we started dressing musicians for their tours and for their appearances.
Basically, he sponsors me. Free Tommy clothes, it's wonderful. It's really cool.
And we put Snoop in one of our oversized rugby shirts on SNL. And Monday, we sold out of every one of those rugbies in every one of the stores in America, and it created this frenzy.
I was there. I was one of those kids, taking part in the frenzy. Yes.
So it really opened my eyes and made me realize that we could actually power the business by connecting with celebrity.
Appreciate your time. A real pleasure talking to you.
Great to talk to you. Thank you.
Very cool guy. As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This market update is brought to you by SSQ Insurance, reminding you that stronger communities make every person stronger. CBC Toronto is a proud sponsor of the 2019 International Film Festival of South Asia. With over 150 films in 16 languages, it's the largest South Asian film festival in North America. Join us May 9th through 20th for this 12-day spectacle, showcasing galas, stars, parties, concerts, and much more. Check out cbc.ca/Toronto for more information and click on our community page.
I get approached in restaurants and people say, "Are you the bagel lady?" And it's so exciting. Hi, I'm Jessica Bretzloff. I'm the owner of the Bagel Oven, and we are located in the fantastic Beamsville, Niagara region. We are a traditional Jewish bakery. We produce bagels in a variety of sizes. We produce challah, loaves, sandwich rolls, slider rolls, and buns. Why bagels? Well, twofold. I think that the region itself is such a foodie region. We were really looking for something we could bring to the table, and that, brings me to my second reason, which is that I'm Jewish, and bagels are traditionally, my food. I always think about, my grandfather looking down and just thinking, wow, my culture is really living on.
Memories of my youth. I used to work at Open Window Bakery. Making challah bread and also making bagels, and it was a lot of fun. I probably ate as much as I made there.
Yeah, I know what I'm having for dinner tonight.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Let's do it.
I'm getting hungry here. Listen, we're talking about the rain,
yes.
right? This time, though, the rain actually hit in the GTA the hardest. It looks like it's going to slide just through around the Golden Horseshoe starting around 1 a.m. tonight. So good news is it is coming through the overnight, but I know you're going to be out partying. So when you're heading home...
I'll be watching the Raptors is what we'll be doing tonight, yeah.
When you're heading home, that's when it's going to be raining. Yeah, risk for some thunderstorms in there as well, 6 degrees. By tomorrow, 14 degrees, and a nice weekend. It's been a long time since I've said above seasonal temperatures.
Because we've been way below. We want to get rid of the jackets already.
Yeah,
we got a little bit taste of it, like maybe 3 weeks ago, and then it went right back to the cold.
Well, you know what? 3 weeks ago, my little guy, he gave up his jacket, and he won't put it on anymore. He's done with winter, so...
You know what,
little guy? Bring some warm weather in for it.
We're all done with winter. Yeah. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6. Yeah, no more jackets.
No more.
No more jackets.